And welcome to the Steelers Depot live stream here on this Monday, October 3rd. As always, I am Alex Kozora. Alongside me is Dave Bryan. Thank you for joining us here for this next edition. And Dave, I think there's a lot to talk about today. I think there's one name on every Steelers fan mind here in the chat. That is one Kenny Pickett. I do want to answer all the Kenny Pickett related questions. There's also a super chat I want to get to here shortly, but before we do that, Dave, how are you doing in chat? If you could just let me know, as usual. Does Dave's audio sound good and clear? If so, we can start. But Dave, how you doing? Oh, you there, Dave?
Oh, okay, I got you. I was hearing feedback there. I'm sorry. I think I got
okay?
you now.
Am I good?
Everything should be good
okay.
now.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing fine. People of the earth, can you hear me?
All right. Will you chant Kenny along with the rest of Steelers Nation?
Kenny. What do you think people are going to want to talk about tonight, Alex?
I have a good guess, but we'll start that as long as chat gives us the clear, and then Ben had some interesting comments. Ben loves to give that 2 cents on the situation, but so does everybody else. So let me just refresh the chat here, make sure everything's good, and then we will dive right in. Tim and Danielle and Mike, I'll say everything sounds good. All right, let's jump right in. Again, we'll have Dave and I will be here till 8 p.m., till top of the hour, answering as many questions as we can. We'll start off with our friend Tim Chase with the $5 super chat. So thank you, Tim. Says, is it me or is both Miles Jack or any inside linebackers playing well as of late? So I think you're asking, are any of the linebackers playing well? I think Jack has looked the best of the three. I think he's done pretty well in coverage overall. Did have that missed tackle on the goal line at the end of the game, which, certainly one you'd like to have back, have a second chance at. I think Bush has been okay. He's been better. I'm still struggling to figure out how Robert Spillane is the dime guy on this roster.
Yeah, and if you want to be honest about it, I mean, Devin probably had a slightly better game than Miles Jack did yesterday, but as a whole, they're the linebacker, those inside linebackers aren't playing, we're up to the level that they probably need to be playing at this point here right now. I haven't even touched the defensive all 22 yet, but I know there are some views in the TV all 22 that are not favorable, especially for Spillane. I think you pointed out that down there on that goal line, Miles Jack's the first one through, and isn't able to get the tackle there. I don't know. I don't think PFF charged him with a missed tackle on that. If you can believe
should.
It. But hold on a minute here. Let me see what they had. No, they didn't charge him with a missed tackle on that. They gave him 3 stops in that game. In total, targeted 6 times, 4 receptions in that game. Looks like they gave Devin Bush of the inside linebackers the slightly higher score. Of course, who knows sometimes how heavy their grading goes. I know Devin Bush was given the high grade in pass rush, so I don't know how they weight that kind of stuff. But when you look at just like overall run defense grades for them, they have Devin Bush at the highest of those inside linebackers at 72.2. And then Miles Jack way down at 52.2, and then Robert Spillane, I think, right in the middle at about 66.1. But once again, I saw some bad angles in there. I think I saw some gap issues. I mean, it's hard to kind of speak on that stuff, especially on some runs until you get the end zone view on some of this. And one thing that did stick out is, man, they were probably over respecting that run. Because play action, there are probably at least 3 plays off the top of my head that they got sucked up way up toward the line of scrimmage on play action. That left the middle of the field in that second level wide open there. I don't think there was a robber, but maybe on one of those plays there. But the whole defense needs to be play better. Who are we kidding here? Especially late in that game, those 2 fourth quarter drives. And I think even as your charting bears out, they got a lot of pressure early in that game, but where was it, on into the latter portions of the game?
Right. It was about, I think, 43 or 47% pressure rate in the first three quarters and about 16% in the fourth quarter. And really, the pressures weren't even nearly as quality, the few pressures they got late in that game. But I think play action's been an issue for this team. Defending middle of the field's been an issue for this team really since week one. Even the Bengals were having success there overall. So something to watch going forward. Let's see. Our question comes from Mutated Genome, who says, "Hi, Alex and Dave. We all knew Pickett was going to play at some point this season. Do you think Mike Tomlin panicked and put him in at the wrong time? How about getting him some first-team snaps in practice first?" I mean, I am more surprised than not that Pickett's debut began mid-game as opposed to starting a week fresh. I don't know if panic's the right word. I mean, I get your point. I think Tomlin's calculation was his offense is doing nothing. This is a game that we really have to win. I mean, don't want to drop to 1-3 with the schedule that's ahead of it and beat or lose to a team that you certainly could beat in the Jets. You're at home. You're going to have the energy of a crowd that's been dying to see Kenny Pickett. I get the calculation overall. I wouldn't call it panic. I think it was a little bit, well, let's just try it and see what works, but I wouldn't call it panic.
I think it was just what he said, trying to get a spark there, and it would have been interesting. Hindsight's always 20/20, but had Deontay Johnson gotten that other foot in bounds, if there would have been a change made at that point. But maybe he saw something that he didn't necessarily like and some things. Look, here's the thing. Mitch went, you only live once in that first half, man, as we talked about. And the charting bears this out. Like 7 of his throws were more than 16 yards down the field. And this is a guy that has, not only this season, but throughout his career struggled with throws down the field and connecting on them. And I think it was one more than half of his throws were deep down the field. And then as I pointed out when talking to you on the podcast this morning, Alex, that third down pass over there to Jaylen Warren on the side, that ball's got to get out quicker. If that ball gets out quicker and is out in front of Jaylen Warren, he catches it and gets a first down, I think. But instead, it took a little while to develop. Mitch got that ball out, threw it behind where Warren had to reach behind him. And then, obviously the defender caught up to him at that time, and they didn't convert in that situation. So, look, I think Tomlin knew the repercussions of what would happen once he made that change. The only way that you couldn't go back from it is if Kenny Pickett actually bombed bad, which he obviously didn't do. And then you can say, okay, well, we tried it, and back the other way. But I think he was looking for a spark. I think he had seen enough of this offense not being able to score points in the first quarter, first halves of games. And he was looking for that spark, and he got it.
I'm with you, Dave, 100%. If you guys could like the video, that would help bring in more people. We would appreciate that. Be sure to ask your questions in the chat for Dave and I. Also, shortly after this live stream ends, maybe about an hour or so after it ends, I'll have a video breakdown on Kenny Pickett going through the bulk of his passes and plays, notable ones in Sunday's game. And so you can check that out in a little bit, either on Steelers Depot or on the channel. So be on the lookout.
From the all-22 view too, right?
Right, yeah, all-22 view of Kenny Pickett. Mike Adesso says, "I'd imagine Tomlin is quite unhappy right now that Pickett is starting at Bills was leaked. No, I'm sure giving the Bills, let me scroll back up, at least a few days to prep for both would have been beneficial." I mean, it wasn't really leaked. It's not outright said, but listen, I'm sure Buffalo was planning for Pickett to be the quarterback. Everyone can see the writing on that wall there. There really isn't much of a mystery around it. So I don't think he even knows or cares, and it's really all moot.
And I think their head coach said something to the degree that, there's not much on film anyway. We have to go off what we think that we know of him and go off kind of what the offense is run. Look, they know a lot about Trubisky, right? I mean, he was with them last season, and they've got 3.5 games of him to look at. Is Tomlin going to play games anyway now that this quote unquote report's out there? I mean, to me, it's more educated speculation, even though Ian Rappaport says, source. And I think Jason Lockenfor in one of his Washington Post stories this morning, in so many words said from a team I don't know who he didn't name him by name, obviously saying that you almost have to stick with Kenny Pickett at this point. But I don't think it takes a rocket surgeon to figure out who's likely to start against Buffalo, right?
Right. It's going to be Kenny Pickett, and I imagine Mike Tomlin will make that announcement himself tomorrow during his Tuesday press conference. Super Chat, $5 from DTG108. Thank you so much. Says, what are some improvements, benchmarks you want to see from Kenny this year to call his season a success? I mean, do you have anything comes to mind for you, Dave? Because I don't have anything super specific. I'm just kind of taking it all in stride to start his career.
Yeah, and my thoughts on young quarterbacks is 20 games, so there's bound to be some highs and some lows here. You want the accuracy to remain what it is at this point. A couple of really nice throws in that game, to Pickens on some back shoulder stuff. Obviously the one that he hung in there to Freiermuth and took the big hit on and drilled it right down the middle of the field, and those kind of things. Maybe footwork, I guess, because even Kenny kind of talked about that after the game. I think wanting to go back and look at some of his footwork thing, but and then obviously overall decision making. On top of it, he says that that throw to Freiermuth over to the side there that is trying to either kind of put it up out of bounds or over the head there. And I kind of wonder though, if you look at that thing, Freiermuth got both hands on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's a tough catch, but this is the NFL anyway, and is much said about that pass if Freiermuth catches it. Hindsight's always 20/20 here, but I wouldn't say. Look, I stated this on Twitter after the game and on the podcast this morning. I think one of the most impressive things, other than the throws that I've already just recanted there, was that Hail Mary flew 64
you love that
yards.
Hail Mary.
I just love it from the fact that I don't remember him. One of my concerns with him, even coming out, or really the only concern about him coming out of preseason was the overall arm strength there. And I went through every throw, obviously, of all the Pitt games after he was drafted and all like that, and I don't remember seeing one thrown that distance from launch point. So the fact that he's able to chuck it down there that far, I thought was impressive. Sure, it was intercepted, and people saying, well, he didn't give anybody a chance to really make a catch. Well, it's called a Hail Mary for a reason, right? In the game situation. So it might be one of those weird kind of attaboys, if you will, but that stuck out to me late in that game. Look, his average depth of his average intended air yards was good. His average completed air yards was good, but it was only a small sample size. Sure, there are a couple decisions maybe that you'd like to see different in that game, but I think everybody should just sit back and enjoy the ride at this point. And as I told Alex on the podcast this morning, I really look at that game Sunday, that second half of that game, as preseason game number 4 for Kenny Pickett. And now, assuming he's going to be the starter moving forward, he'll have the full week of practice and all those reps that go along with it. But if we are looking at it, or if I'm looking at it as a fourth preseason performance for him, I think he's progressed in every single outing so far. So that's where I'm at. And like the rest of you listening, I am excited to see what transpires from here.
Me too. I want to find out. Sink or swim, start learning about your first-round pick. Is he the future or not? Not that you have to completely, write that answer in pen after the season, but you want to start gathering as much information as you can, because gone are the days of wait 4 years to figure out what you have and then make a decision. It's within basically 2 years you kind of know what you have or what you don't have in your guy. In terms of benchmarks, just off the top.
How many games has Joe Burrow played in now? How many total games does Joe Burrow have now?
He missed most of his rookie year with the ACL, played all of last year's, played this year.
It's about 20 games, right? Pretty close?
He's probably, 25 to 30, I would say, plus playoffs.
Let's see how many.
Probably around 30 if you include postseason.
Yeah, well, 30 games regular season, I guess, overall. So, do we agree Joe Burrow's here now?
Yes, I do at least.
All right. I mean, there was a little bit of question, maybe latter part, maybe a last season there, but and I think you got to really give it that time. You got to let this kid make mistakes. You got to let defensive coordinators make their adjustments to what they initially see, and then see how Pickett's able to adjust from that, and then you kind of decide.
Yeah, I would say just in terms of benchmark situational play. Again, I thought the best thing Pickett did was move this team and move the sticks on third and fourth down. They were 1 of 6 in the first half. They were 5 of 6 on third down, 1 of 1 on fourth down in the second half with Kenny Pickett. Red zone play, they were solid in the red zone. They converted. They finished drives. They finished downs. That's what I want to see. That's kind of the mark of good quarterback play overall. How well do you play situationally? In terms of what he can improve upon, again, we're so new into this, but I think pocket movement, pocket presence, I thought that was an issue. Actually, going back through the all 22 of that interception to Freiermuth, I don't like his pocket presence drifting so much more than the actual throw to Freiermuth. He drifted 5-10 yards on that play and created pressure for himself instead of stepping up, pitching, and I think that was the biggest blemish on that play beyond even just the actual throw.
I'll tell you something else to kind of look for moving forward that I just thought of. What about low red zone? You know, how much have we really seen him even in the preseason and obviously through the second half? Now, obviously he had the 2 quarterback touchdowns in that game, but I'm talking about throwing the football. How does he perform in the low red zone moving forward would be something to probably pay close attention to.
Right, the things that, decide between field goals and missed opportunities and touchdowns.
Right.
That's such a fine line there, so I'm with you 100%. So good question overall. Jonathan Mason, do y'all think they should blitz Bush more, especially while Watt is out? Seems like he has impacted the play each time he has. Yeah, some of that scheme, but I think he has done a good job as a blitzer. I mean, in the fourth quarter of that game, they didn't blitz at all. I don't know how you get away when your pass rush is clearly not getting home when the Jets are chipping your ends, your edge guys. How do you not blitz once? So I think just in general, this team has done a lot to try to respond to the loss of TJ Watt. They're not just putting in Malik Reed and just hoping for the same success in terms of personnel groupings and alignment and stuff like that. But I still think that blitz rate is a little bit too low.
And we talked about how are they going to do, or if they show that they can't get it done before, they're going to have to manufacture pressure with numbers.
Right, and they've not done that adequately enough in my mind. Mike Adesso, Leal has looked pretty solid so far. Has the ceiling changed in your eyes? How has his run D looked? Dave, what are your thoughts on rookie DeMarvin Leal?
I mean, he's not going to be inactive anytime soon. I'll tell you that. But it will be. Look, with guys like, and really, he's being asked to do some things that we probably didn't envision him being asked to do right out of the chute here, right?
Sure.
So do we? We got to see him more in what his natural role is going to be. But I think as far as quickness and kind of being a one gap penetrator and his ability. I think he's got very good being able to diagnose. I think he diagnoses really well from his tape so far there. But I mean, we're what, 4 games into the season? I mean, we can't sit here and make hard judgments like that. And he's obviously going to get stronger and more comfortable and in his role in the defense and those things that go along with that. But I mean, from what we've seen so far, I think it's obviously been positive, and it will be interesting to see once he gets more into what his natural role in that defense will be.
Right. Right now, he's just a big lump of clay, big ball of energy, good athlete, good hand fighter, but still trying to figure out technique and just how to play the game. But it's an encouraging start. As you said, has to get stronger, better anchor against the run, kind of define that role a bit better overall. A lot of work to do, but he's got a good foundation. I've been encouraged. Sam, I think we probably answered that question pretty well on the benchmarks. Daryl Klein says, Pickett, the future is now. Here we go. Tim Chase says, defense is a huge disappointment to me. Secondary terrible. 10 days between games, still running out of gas in the fourth quarter. And I mean, that's the story to me, Dave. This defense had so many chances to win this game, to close this one out, to get the Jets off the field. And they failed in basically every opportunity to stop the Jets come back in that game. And that is so frustrating to see that happen.
Yeah, as we talked on the podcast this morning, it surely seemed like the Jets tried to give them the game in several of those opportunities in the final two scoring drives that they had. I'm looking for the actual downs and distances that you had. 3rd and 6. And these are all fourth quarter.
Yes.
3rd and 6 opportunities, they got 35 yards. 4th and 7, they got 22 yards. The 3rd and goal, 5-yard TD. That was the pivot route, right?
Right, Corey Davis pivot.
That kind of Sutton didn't have a chance on that. Kind of got rubbed off on it. 5-yard TD. 3rd and 6 got 8 yards, and then a 1st and 20. They let them get back kind of in ahead of the chains, got 11 yards, and then the 2nd and 9 they got 17 yards. So they were begging the Steelers to get them off the field in those final two drives. And as you pointed out, I didn't know if it was 5 or 6. I know we talked about the number this morning, but it looks like you got 6 plays in total there, and that sounds right. So those were key. Those were winnable moments in key situations of that game that the Steelers defense clearly did not win.
Right. The offense still has problems, and there was a turnover there to Freiermuth, which was costly and, could have robbed, Pittsburgh of putting 3 points and potentially salting that game away. But this defense, to me, let this team down yesterday, and they've been going backwards week after week. Yes, that loss of TJ Watt, of course, is impacting this team in big ways and small, but still doesn't excuse blowing a 10-point lead to the New York Jets at home. I'm sorry, it does not excuse that.
All right.
Ken Brown, this is probably up your alley here, Dave. Ken Brown says the definition of interception needs to be changed by the statisticians. If the ball is tipped by the receiver, that shouldn't be an interception. So I know you've been driving that bus for a while now, Dave.
Yeah, I've always thought eligibles should have an interception category. Now, look, some of this is obviously subjective and all, but at least the way they get away from it is an interception is an interception. They can throw it on the quarterback, but I think if it's blatant, the interception should go on the eligible man target, or if there's a question, then maybe it should be split half and half. And all I would have no problem because that sometimes obviously you can't look at a box score and know exactly what happened. The 3 interceptions yesterday by Kenny Pickett's a perfect example of that. But it would add a thin layer of context if you were able to look at some guys you're preparing maybe to watch film on for a draft or whatever, or scout for a game and know that wide receiver's got 4 interceptions on him, this year. It would give you something to kind of look for on the tape. Because look, you don't go by stats alone. You always marry the tape up to the tape rules. But at least it would give you some sort of a looking glass view into maybe something that you should look for in the tape.
Dave, I think that has to be, as Chuck Noll would say, your life's work. You have to come up with the stat and spearhead this.
See, at some point, you're going to be on the Hall of Fame voting committee because sooner or later, they're going to get past these newspaper dinosaurs, and they're going to find out that the people that understand the game are the bloggers and the YouTube, Twitter people and all like that. So that it's going to be up to you to carry that torch on down. All right.
All right. It'll be in your honor though, for sure.
All right.
Thomas Villa says the margin of error on this team is so small. We can't have these breakdowns, kicking ball out of bounds, fumble, freshman punts. I agree with you, Thomas. There really is no margin for error on this team. They have to win close. They have to be able to finish games out. They could do that in past years with Ben. They're not finishing games out this year. It's a direct reason why they're losing. And the punting unit with Presley Harvard has not been good enough. That's been an underrated disappointment to start the year. And the weather's good right now. Wait till the weather's bad, and then see how it goes.
And look, as we said, heading into the season, defense is going to have to play very good. They're going to have to have a running game, and their special teams is going to have to be, close to being dead solid perfect. Boswell obviously has done a fantastic job in his role, but Harvin continues to have that inconsistencies to him. And man, Gunnar Olszewski already putting two punts on the ground That's not good. And the punch that and as we talked on the podcast, letting that one hit it wherever it hit, 30 or whatnot, I think cost him about 12 yards in that game yesterday. And you go out and whenever you go out and you sign, a guy like that's really a specialist like that, you expect him to pop at least maybe once or twice in the first 4 games of the season. And the only time I've seen really Gunner pop on the tape was maybe yesterday on that toss crack. He had a nice block, and that's not really what they signed him up to pop on the tape for overall.
He did have a nice 20-yard return against the Bengals, but the expectation has to be a lot higher, and you're not signing this guy that's a former All-Pro return guy to just be like a rookie and muff punts and fumble the ball and not judge punts and stuff like that. I mean, that anyone can do that. You want to get somebody that's going to be a positive influence and certainly not someone that's going to negatively impact your team. So I'm with you there, and they could make a change, maybe bring in a Steven Sims for Week 5 against Buffalo. ODG Dorkman, can NFL players play fantasy football? And if they could, who would they pick up on the Steelers? Are they allowed to play if it's free? I know they can't. There's no money involved here. Are they allowed to just play for free the way that we play for free, or that I play for free at least?
I don't know for sure. I would think that free would be okay, but I don't know how fine a line that is overall. That's above my pay grade there. And who on the Steelers would they want? They'd probably be running to the waiver wire to pick up Kenny Pickett if they got quarterback issues.
Right.
At this point, I don't know who else. I mean, I guess Pickens came alive obviously in that game, 100 yards, and I would think Freiermuth probably going to get it. You posted his average yards per catch, and earlier today is what, 8 point what?
It's 12.4 this year, was 8.3 last year.
Right, and I posted that his average depth of target is like almost 3 yards more than it was last year, and that's one thing that we said coming out of last season is we need to see an average, a better average yards per catch on Freiermuth, and to help facilitate that, he's going to need a healthier average depth of target. And so far, he has both of those.
Right. Be sure to get your questions in for Dave and I. And again, shortly after the live stream ends, I'll have a video all 22 breakdown on Kenny Pickett going through his most notable plays against the Jets in his debut. Damian L. says, I know there's a dozen different issues that need to be addressed, but Dave and Alex, am I the only one who's just utterly disappointed with Najee? Not even just this year, but since entering the NFL. Disappointed is not the word I would use with Najee Harris, especially looking at last year and this year. He has dealt with a foot injury and has not probably been 100%. I think he's gotten better each week. The run blocking's gotten better each week. He's not been obviously the dynamic guy ripping off 40-plus yard runs, but I'm probably less disappointed by him than most fans are. If anything, really, I think his pass protection has been worse than what I thought it would be.
Yeah, he's doubling over now.
Yeah.
At the waist now, and just lowering his head instead of trying to take those on full brunt like we've seen him do in the past. And
right.
And that part of his game is concerning. Now, he talked about last week, not I don't know how much was that just him trying to be politically correct and be a team leader and take put all of it on his shoulders and all like that. Everybody should know my thoughts on running backs by now. I consider it to a most degree a fungible position, and I'll say this, and I'll end it at this: it's not only Najee, it's the offense in whole. 10 explosive plays on the season in 4 games. That's not going to cut it. This team has 0 20-yard runs and 0 40-yard completions so far on offense. So is Najee ever going to be that guy that's going to register 14, 15, 16 explosive runs a season? Probably not. It wasn't his MO in college there. I'm more disappointed with the draft capital that was spent on it than I am than the actual player. I'm not a Najee hater. I think he's a phenomenal guy. I think he's doing okay so far, especially with what he's been given to work with on the offensive line and the offense so far. But that said, there's nothing that Najee's done yet that leads me to believe that this is going to be more than a 4-year guy.
Right.
You know?
I am hoping his impact in the pass game ticks up. I think intentionally with his team throwing the ball downfield a lot more really. That's why Harris's receiving numbers are down, but hopefully he can make some plays in space because he's really good in space one-on-one against some DBs.
And look, that's one thing. Maybe that's another thing to add to the Kenny Pickett thing to look for checklist. And we've talked about it throughout the season here that especially on third down, Kenny Pickett. I mean, Mitch Trubisky was not captain check down. He was throwing way past the sticks even on average on third downs there. There are instances where it's okay to check down to the running back. We go back a couple years ago with Le'Veon Bell, you know, and even rookie season last year with Najee. And we've seen what he's been able to do out in space with the football in his hands. And that's what you need to do with a guy like Najee because of his size and his strength and his ability to break tackles. You need to get him easy touches, call them manufactured runs, if you will, out in space. And that's something that we really haven't seen this offense do with him. So maybe that's something to look forward to on the Kenny Pickett checklist moving forward. Maybe utilizing Najee Harris more out of the backfield.
The check down checklist. We'll be checking on it going forward. Mike,
and of course, the moment they throw 3rd and 7,
right.
Check it down, then everybody come running at me. But I think you kind of see what I'm getting at there.
I do. Mike, you can see on screen Ben saying that he was surprised by Trubisky being benched, thought it was more of a Steelers issue than a Trubisky issue. I think there's a level of truth to that. I mean, Deontay had that interception go through his hands, 1 inch from his foot being inbounds for a touchdown. You take away those things, Mitch probably remains the quarterback. The complexion of the game certainly changes. So I get Ben's point overall, but I'm not mad about Pickett being the guy. Let's see. Next question comes from Todd. He says, what happened to Gunner's hands? He was all-pro last year. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a small sample size, but the margin for error for these guys are slim. You don't get as many returns as you used to get. You got to capitalize on them, and just bad luck, bad technique. I'm not really quite sure what it is, but it's a problem. Stand up 42003 says, hello, fellas. When does the defense start trying to confuse the quarterback on critical downs, bringing 6-7 guys near the line of scrimmage and making the offense identify who is coming could help in the front four? Yeah, I'm with you. I think this team needs to show more sim pressure and more mug looks. Those are becoming, I think, pretty popular around the league. I see basically every team Pittsburgh plays each week do it. The Jets this past week, the Browns. I know the Bills have done it under McDermott, so I'm with you there. I think they have to actually have more pressure and show more pressure as well.
Yeah, until TJ gets back for sure.
Right. And I think, again, they knew the Jets were going to do the chips with their wings and slow down the edge rushers of Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh really didn't try to do anything differently to respond to that. I know Kim Hayward said they have things they can do, but I'm not really sure what those things are. All right, let's see. Next question comes from Sebastian. Says, when is Calvin Austin coming back? Don't know for sure. He's eligible. They could open the window on him tomorrow. I mean, they could do it now, right?
Hopefully we'll get that word, Tuesday or Wednesday with him. I mean, I obviously don't know how serious that injury was, but wasn't there kind of a report yesterday about him? Maybe it was Missy Matthews on the pregame radio or something that he's been moving around, more and more pre-games and stuff like that. So maybe we'll get a report on Tuesday or I guess it would probably be Wednesday. And maybe Mike Tomlin will be asked about that during his press conference on Tuesday about if they'll open the window on him and maybe even TJ, because TJ can return to practice this week as well too here. So keep your fingers crossed, especially when it comes to both those guys.
I'd like to think Austin comes back sooner than later, but he has to practice, then get back into shape and be conditioned. So he's not going to practice for 1 week and then dress and play 30 snaps, So just be patient with that. But hopefully good news on the horizon. Johan Hernandez says, too early to say, but if this team gets a high first-round draft pick, do they need to find a lockdown corner to play alongside Minka? Does this team need a lockdown corner? Sure. I mean, I'm never one to say no to a lockdown type of cornerback, and this team probably doesn't have one right now, so where does that list on other needs and weighing all those things? That's impossible to say here in October, but every team would love to have a lockdown corner, and the Steelers currently do not have that guy.
Yeah, but within that, I come from the Bill Parcells way of drafting early draft picks there. You either get a quarterback, You get a guy that can protect your quarterback from a guy that can get after a quarterback, or you get a guy that can get after the quarterback. The closer to the line of scrimmage is, in my opinion, where first-round draft picks should be spent.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I mean, and generally that's what happens. Cornerbacks typically don't get taken too high overall. Only one DB ever drafted number 1 overall. That was good old Gary Glick of the Steelers back in the 50s. But I mean, you saw some this past year with Gardner and Stingley. But we'll see. It's a hard question to answer. But of course, it'd be possible.
And the better you pay, your rush and coverage go hand in hand. So the better that your rush is, you can cover up some. You don't have to have the Darrelle Revises, I don't think, back there and on. Look, I mean, you got to obviously, the top one of the top safeties in the NFL back there with a ball magnet in the middle of them in Minkah Fitzpatrick there. So, I mean, and I don't really trust the Steelers at this point to be able to draft a good cornerback in the first round.
Fair enough. Curtis Bailey, will TJ's return dramatically improve this defense, or are there problems deeper than that?
It won't hurt.
Yeah, let's find out. I would love to find out sooner than later. Are the problems deeper than just TJ Watt? Sure, but he cures a lot of stuff in terms of your pass rush, the way that you can cover and rush for a drop 7 and not have to necessarily blitz as much or rely on your weak front 4 to get home, which creates problems as it did against the Jets. So, I mean, the run game stuff, backside pursuit, the way teams have to slide away from Kim Hayward, it's going to open up a lot of things, assuming Watt returns and is at, generally his typical Watt self, at least 90% of it. So does that solve everything? No, but it solves a lot.
Yeah, sign me up for let's find out.
42L Music Group says, Alex, what do you think about the Steelers benching Claypool for Boykins? They really play 2 different spots. Claypool's been in the slot all year, and Boykins is an outside receiver, so it's not really a one-to-one thing. Boykin did play in some of their heavy personnel, their 22 personnel. He was the lone receiver out there, so they have a specific package for him in there for his size and blocking and theoretical play action, deep threat type of stuff. But certainly Claypool has to play better. I just wouldn't see that as Boykin being the guy that would really directly replace him.
Right.
Zach Randall, going forward, should the Steelers have Mason Rudolph as number 2 behind Kenny for the fact of Kenny not looking over his shoulder in case he struggles? I don't think that would be the reason to have Rudolph as the number 2. No. It is an interesting question, though. I mean, what do you do with Trubisky? Do you just make him the number 2? Do you give Rudolph the opportunity? How do you handle that?
Boy, it would, look, you got to do what's best for the team. So, but within that, it would really make it look like this whole. It's a competition. We already knew it was a sham anyway. If you go 1 week from Mitch Trubisky as your starter, and look, I mean, I understand why the decision is made, but in Trubisky's defense, he has taken care of the football, right? Overall, and that's one thing that this offense definitely can't do. By no stretch of imagination am I going to say that he was above the line overall, but I would be surprised if it came to, okay, well we're going to make the change at starting quarterback and we're going to just shuffle the whole damn thing here and now make Mason the backup to Kenny Pickett. So I think you have obviously some continuity with Mitch that should something happen to Pickett in a game, and injury wise, at least you have a guy that's already been working with that offense that could come right in and try to pick up the pieces there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Trubisky will remain the number 2 for the foreseeable future, but we'll see. We'll see what Tomlin decides. Tim Chase, another $5 super chat. Thank you, Tim. Says, are the backup outside linebackers as bad as my gut tells me? Yeah, your eyes tell me that, and they, for sure, Tim, because the guys have not done well. And listen, it's tough to expect Malik Reed and those guys to step into the TJ Watt role, but Pittsburgh's trying to limit their use as much as possible with their 3-3-5 and 3 inside linebacker package. Robert Spillane rushing off the edge a ton in that game. They're trying to limit those snaps overall, and so the pass rush, the run defense has not been good enough either. And so everyone gets focused on the lack of pass rush and pressure, myself included, but run defense, no TJ Watt, certainly hurts them as well.
Man, what they're having to do with DeMarvin Leal speaks volumes anyway.
Yep.
At this point, and you and I had our questions about Malik Reed after they traded for him. He's more of a number 4 on a team, if you ask me. And I mean, your other guys are Jameer Jones, and it's been Delonte Scott prior to this week. Obviously, it's Ryan Anderson now. I mean, in the past, I know I've been screaming for and they seemingly obviously did that when they got Melvin Ingram last year, and we all know how that worked out there. But I don't think they should have given up trying to better that position this past offseason. Just what they did trading for Malik Reed just kind of feels like a Hail Mary.
Right. This team needs to heavily invest in an edge rusher, just in the way that teams need to have good, top 3 corners. They got to, or top 3 receivers. They got to have good top 3 edge for injury, for rotation, because it's really hurt this team post Ingram last year and all of this year. Almost missed a super chat, so I apologize for that. I want to get to it now. That's from Crystal Privet. Says Najee needs more carries. Stop splitting with Jalen. So that's the commentary.
I don't know. I like to see. I wouldn't mind seeing Jalen get a handful more, to be honest with you. But I get the point that Najee had as far as his game overall against the Jets. I mean, I thought he ran hard. He had his longest run of the season, I think, 16 yards or something in that game. And the problem is they didn't. Someone asked last week, was it Chase Claypool, what is your identity? This team does need now, if they're going to switch to the quarterback, they need to develop some sort of identity of who they are, and they don't have that. Are they going to be a running team that can move the sticks on 3rd and 5, or shorter than that? And but I tell you, Jalen does hit that hole fast. And I think he gives you, between him and Najee, he gives you the more probability of busting an explosive run. This team needs to figure out how to get more explosive plays, because 10 in 4 games, like I mentioned, that's just not enough.
No, it's not. I'm with you for sure. So in terms of the identity, this team has a lot of questions about who they are, how they win, how they function, and they're going to try to answer some of those the rest of the season. Let's see, Tim Chase, why is Loudermilk not dressing? Thought he was a run stopper. He is. It's a numbers game. They got 6 defensive linemen they're playing now, which is already a little bit heavy for them, with DeMarvin Leal, as Dave talked about, playing that rush end role, that kind of quasi-outside linebacker. He's going to be active and play significant snaps there a lot of weeks, so there's really just not room for Loudermilk right now.
Right. It's probably going to, unfortunately, knock on wood, take an injury at this point right now, maybe to get Loudermilk a helmet.
Michael Garman, where is Kim Hayward? Yeah, I mean, I'm as big a Kim Hayward fan as anybody, but it's been a really quiet 3 games. I know he's battled injury and attention and all that kind of stuff, but bottom line is your stars got to play like stars. And Hayward's not been bad, but he's not been as impactful as this defense needs him to be.
That was one of my 5 keys that I wrote up Saturday night there. Need a high-performance Cam, and they didn't get that in that game.
Nope. Let's see, GORDI49 with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Considering the defensive struggles, why aren't they dressing Mark Robinson? I know it's easy to look towards door number 2 and the guys who aren't there. And Robinson, his play this summer was really impressive, and I think he's got a future in this league with this team. But he's not going to cure what this team's looking for. Overall, he's still young. He was playing running back 2 years ago, rookie overall. I think even some work to do on special teams. So I'm not really sure what role that would be, but he's not going to solve this team's problems.
He might not, but I bet he starts dressing after the bye sometime, barring injury.
Okay, yeah, he might. By that point, I mean, he's going to be more comfortable, and the coaches are going to trust him more. But I mean, what is he going to do? Just play on special teams? Is there a defensive role that you could potentially?
No, I mean, I think you get him out there at least, and get him involved in the special team aspect of it, and then be one of the next guys up if injury happens there.
Right. Let's see if I can scroll back up to where the questions were. Dave and I here for another 15 minutes, so be sure to get your questions in. I saw a question where I just lost it. That's from Tyler. Any intel on if the quarterback's coach was calling plays second half, not Canada? Not to my knowledge. I don't, have not heard anything about that. I did see one play where Pickett was looking to the sideline like an old college offense. I don't know what that was about or not, but I think, to my knowledge, Canada's still calling the offense.
Right. I would think so.
I just got a chat, so let me go ahead and scroll back up. George Teston, what is going on with the O-line with all the ineligible man downfield calls? Yeah, they're up to 4 of them. Those are on RPOs. That's, to me, not on the offensive line. They got to run block. They're going to go to the second level. The quarterback either has to hand the ball off, and you won't get called for that, or if you're passing, the ball has to come out immediately, because if you hold on to the football, you're going to get flagged for that, and the NFL is cracking down on that, it appears, this year. So that is RPOs that are not being thrown quickly enough or not being read correctly.
Right. How many RPO wide receiver screens have they thrown? And obviously it's a read and all, but I don't think we've seen many of those, have we?
I saw more in the second half. There were a lot of RPOs when Pickett came in. I don't know what they were doing first half. I haven't really gone back through the first half. My attention went straight to Pickett, but I saw, 5, 6 of them in the second half of that game.
But how many were throws to the wide receiver in the screen portion of it?
At least one to Deontay. It was probably 2.
Was it 2?
That was the one that they got called for. 2 that they got called for. So, yeah, there were probably 3 or 4 in that game.
Okay.
Let's see. Mr. Tummy, being realistic, I thought it'd be a multi-season process to get back to being competitive. I'm okay if this year gives Pickett, Warren, the O-line, etc. the time to get necessary experience. Yeah, that's a good perspective. No one likes to lose, and it still sucks as you're going through it, but it's a transitional year, and I compared it to where the Patriots were at in 2020 without Tom Brady, and so I think Pittsburgh's in a similar position now.
Right.
Michael Altman just got home from the game. I'm not sure which game, but okay. I saw huge holes in the defense for Jets receivers running wide open. Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. I know Minka talked about how the Jets responded and adapted well, and Pittsburgh just simply didn't. So I need to watch all 22 to learn more. But as Dave talked about, play action being effective for the Jets and really creating holes behind the linebackers.
Yeah, they really respected the living you-know-what out of that. And there's at least 4 or 5 plays, I think, where you can see those linebackers come way up and really left a lot of running room in that second level.
A comment here from Diane, who says, look at the preseason. They look better than, and some of those guys they did not sign. Where is Tyler Vaughns? So Diane wants Tyler Vaughns to come back to Pittsburgh. I don't know what ever happened to Tyler Vaughns. I don't think he signed anywhere.
I don't think he signed with anybody, even on a practice squad. I'll have to look real quick here.
But I promise you, Tyler Vaughns is not turning this season around.
Right.
Jets fan here from Barney Miller. What do y'all think of our Z-dub? Zach Wilson, did he win it, or did we just get lucky? I mean, he was pretty brutal the first 3 quarters, completed a third of his passes, had 2 interceptions, and the game plan was better. As we talked about, Minka Fitzpatrick saying the Jets changed their game plan and threw away from him, the robber, more often. I thought Wilson, mentally tough, a really tough first 3 quarters, and to finish that one out and get moving, I mean, you got to give him credit. So, I mean, he's a very much up and down kind of guy, second-year guy, first start this season, obviously, so you would expect some volatility, but I thought he was really tough to hang in there and finish that game out.
I saw Dan Orlovsky had a clip on Twitter early this morning talking about how you could kind of see when it got into the fourth quarter that Zach kind of was doing a much better job of not staring down his receivers, and then one particular did a good job of looking right at Minka, who was kind of robbing on one of those I guess kind of over routes there that he hit. I think it was Garrett Wilson maybe on that one. I don't remember for sure. But Orlovsky made sure to point out that the fourth quarter was a lot more noticeable with him doing a good job of reading the field. So maybe that was a process of, him, because he obviously hadn't played in a game up until yesterday, outside of getting hurt in preseason. Maybe that's a little bit of a sign of that rust slowly working its way up. But once again, you're talking about a young quarterback here, and I don't really think you're going to know what you got until you get around, get around game 20, which I guess he's coming up close on now at this point, right?
Right. He started most of his rookie year, if not all of it, and then, one game yesterday. So, yeah, thank you, though, for Barney, for being here. Appreciate that, and congrats on the win. Let's see. Mike Adesso says, FYI, Missy Matthews mentioned pregame that Watt for the second game in a row was out on the field working out along with Calvin Austin, which is a good sign. When is KZ due back? Mid-season, maybe, but he's not going to come back as soon as he's eligible. So we're just wait and see approach, and it'll be probably a little bit while longer for KZ.
Yeah, probably going to not a guy that you got to ramp up the conditioning on. So, probably about 2 weeks after they open the window on him, whenever that is, and. I don't think they're going to, obviously they can't open a window on him yet, right? Because of the suspension and all like that.
Right,
so,
true.
I would think maybe obviously within 21 days of whenever they open the window, but I don't think I wouldn't expect the window to be open for a couple more weeks on him.
Jonathan Mason, how much different would these first 4 games have looked with Mason starting? I know it's hindsight, but I feel like he could have gotten the job done equal to or better than Mitch. Again, that's impossible to say. I would say it'd be similar, maybe a touch. I don't know, maybe touch better, touch worse in some moments, but similar results.
Yeah, and look, you turn the football, you fumble that punt against the Patriots, right? There's would it really have? Yeah, it's so much hypothetical in there, He'd probably been a little bit better with the deep ball than Trubisky.
Yeah, he would have been. I think so. Less mobile. Would he have had more turnovers? Because Trubisky has taken good care of the football. Again, maybe a tick better in some respects, but not changing the course of this team's season. Jonathan Mason, is there anyone that stands out from the outside organization to bring in as OC next year? I have no idea. I'm sure there are guys. The Lions OC, I think his name's Ben Johnson or something, or maybe he's in Philadelphia doing a great job, but I have not thought about it at all.
Yeah, and it feels like just because of the history of this organization that if they move on from Canada, it's going to be Mike Sullivan,
Purple Moosey, Alex, what was your feel on Mitch's attitude after the game? He did not want to be there, I'll tell you that much, and I don't blame the guy. They lose, he gets benched. So, he said the right things. He was clearly pissed, and I get that, so I'm not going to hold that against him. He's a human. He's emotions. He's frustrated. He's been benched and back up, and this was his opportunity to rebuild his career, and that's a frustrating feeling. So, he was not happy, but I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, I don't think, what's the word that you like to use, ostensibly? Yeah, on that one.
Okay.
I don't think he did anything wrong in that area. He's obviously going to be upset after the game and probably short with his answers and all like that, but who wouldn't be?
Right. Matthew Smith, where was Minkah ball magnet in that final drive? They were throwing away from him, and that's what Minkah talked about. Minkah was not the problem in that game. Minkah was fantastic. He almost had 3 interceptions in that game, so I think Minkah was great.
Boy, he almost got one thrown right in his belly there, didn't he?
On that roll out to the right, yeah. He would have housed that too. So close.
Yeah, that surprised him more than anything, I think.
Mm-hmm. The Brobarian, isn't it true that Troy Polamalu was safety was also drafted in the first round? Yes, I'm talking. Maybe I misspoke earlier. I meant to say number 1 overall pick for DB. Only one of them ever been taken first overall. That was Gary Glick back in the 50s. Ross Wisher, would you trade Kim Hayward if someone offers a first rounder? It's not even on the table. I have not even given that a second of thought, but probably not. How much draft capital do you think Trubisky would command? That's from Jalen Brown. I know Luck and Fora has the quote-unquote report of watch out for Trubisky
it's
potentially.
It's more report speculation, I feel. But
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and for all the reasons that I kind of said it. Is it unthinkable? If you got the right offer, but to me, I don't see what you have to gain if you got less than a third for him.
And you're not getting a third for Trubisky.
And I don't think you're going to get a third for him. He's not killing you. As long as he doesn't come right out and say, I want out of here, I want to trade. I don't think he's a guy that's going to kill you in the locker room. He's definitely not killing you from a salary aspect here. He's not going to, barring something crazy happening now, he's not going to hit any of his incentives that were not likely to be earned, so there's no extra money going to be spent there. Now, could he get traded after the season? I don't think that's out of the question. But this team, look what this team did with Mason Rudolph last year before was it around draft time or something, right? When they extended him.
Yep.
And all this team tries to look ahead and make sure at least they don't have the cupboard bare with players under contract there. So and it's not like it's catastrophic when it comes to this. But if you were to trade Trubisky now before November 1st, and you kept Mason Rudolph, well then you don't have any backup under contract in 2023, and it just doesn't seem to be their MO to do that. Now, if you got out of this season and assuming Mitch Trubisky doesn't qualify for any roster bonuses, which it doesn't look like he's going to with because of these incentives in his contract, the way they're structured there, then technically you could hold on to Trubisky past the start of the new league year in March, get through free agency, get to the draft, and then make a decision either on draft day or right after the draft of whether or not to deal him. Because if Kenny Pickett is who they think he is or can be or whatnot at this point, it's hard to imagine Trubisky being on the 53-man roster at an $8 million base salary, correct?
Yeah, there's no way Trubisky's a Steeler next year. This quarterback room is going to undergo change again. Rudolph won't be back. Trubisky won't be back. Could they trade him after the year? Maybe. What value are they going to get? Who's going to want Trubisky for a guy that you know that he's going to get cut? If you're another team, you're just waiting for that guy to get released. So maybe they carry him through free agency, make sure they go sign a veteran quarterback, and then release Trubisky. That's possible, but I just don't see what value. What would a team possibly trade for Trubisky, who's found another place to struggle in?
I tell you, I'll take a blindfolded dart throw right now. I think during the draft, maybe if to move up or something, that's something that you consider, some sort of a deal like that to maybe go up or something.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see.
I don't think he'll be on the 2023 53-man roster.
No,
I'll go that far in that. And I mean, I pretty much said that, back in, when was it, May or something, that this really feels like a one and done in Pittsburgh. Now, obviously, there's 4 weeks, right? Roughly 4 weeks to go until the trade deadline. Quarterbacks could go down on a contender. You never know what kind of crazy thing. Maybe the Steelers get an offer that they can't refuse or something like that. But from where we're sitting right now at this moment, it really seems unlikely.
Rajon39 says Dobbs will be back next year. Watts. So he's calling the shot on Josh Dobbs' third return to Pittsburgh.
How about Jacoby Brissett as your backup next year, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see the rest of this year takes him in Cleveland. Lou Boy with a very generous $20 super chat to begin closing out today's stream says, I feel like Mitch never had a chance being told to protect the ball, didn't throw deep till the Browns game. The play calls were not to his advantage either. If he came out day one and threw interceptions and stunk, I would have benched him. I think that's pretty fair, to be honest. I think the model early this year, the first 2 weeks, Dave, was to take a profit, don't make the mistake, allow your defense to make plays. Then they said, well, we could open up this offense more. So then Trubisky started to take more downfield shots and opportunities. And again, while I'm not mad at Pickett coming in for the second half of that game, I don't think Trubisky was awful in that first half. Some bad sacks have probably been the biggest issue he's had the whole season. So I can understand Trubisky's frustration for sure, and I think Lou Boy, that's a fair summary of what happened.
And look, I mean, it wasn't like he all of a sudden upped his down the field throws either. Because remember, in week one, he had 8 or 9 deep pass attempts of 20 yards or more. And I'm looking at it right now, just on Sports Info Solutions SIS. That he had going into this game 23 attempts of 16 or longer, or 16 or more air yards, and anything with 16 or more air yards gets the deep pass classification on the play-by-play sheet. So and he had what do you have? 7? What did I say? 7 attempts of 16 or more yards. So I mean, we're looking at a guy that in 4 games has 30 pass attempts of 16 or more air yards on him. That might not lead the NFL after this week, but it'd be pretty damn close. So 4 divided by, I mean, he's taking shots down the field. That's not the problem. The problem is he's not completing, a high percentage of them, obviously, there. So, and then the other thing that I pointed out is on the, the third downs, throwing way past the sticks on third downs and them not converting those 3rd and 5 or fewers.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. I mean, I do feel like the offense has tried to open up more since the Browns game. It just wasn't effective, and I think there were issues with scheme, issues with the run game that's been slowly progressing. But the first 2 weeks, especially week 1, not really there. So I get your perspective there, Lou Boy, and I agree with most of that.
I don't think he's played awful.
No, but he's not the answer, obviously. This team needs to do something different. Kenny Pickett was going to play sooner or later. I'm in favor of making that sooner as long as he's shown he's capable of playing and going out there, and Pickett certainly has. Couple super chats we'll go through. Says, looking forward to next offseason. If Edmonds leaves in free agency, how do you feel about moving Sutton to safety? He's not a strong safety. He's going to be an outside or an inside corner. So he's a guy that can rotate and spin in some of the different disguises and play safety post-snap and passing downs, but he won't be a box safety the way that Terrell Edmonds is.
No.
$2 super chat from LV. Why did the Steelers choose not to sign Hilton? I'm trying to think back. That was the COVID cap crunch of it all. They ended up releasing Steven Nelson. Who did they end up signing that year? Who did they end up retaining that year?
Well, they went out. Didn't they go out and get Arthur Millette, right?
Yeah, but
on a minimum a veteran benefit contract too. At that, look, there's always ways to make it work.
Sure. I think, the Bengals offered a lot of money, and Pittsburgh, because Hilton's not an every down kind of guy, and because they were shedding a bunch of cap space, was really the reason why Hilton did not return.
They to boil it down, they didn't think he was worth the money, the average, the guaranteed and the average yearly value that he got from the Bengals. I mean, that's the long and short of it, because they could have done voided years, with him to help from a cap perspective and all like that. They just didn't think he was worth what he got.
LV $5 super chat continued from last chat. We could have solidified our cornerback. I'm not really sure where the first part. Why did the Steelers choose not to sign Hilton? We could have solidified our cornerback room. Yeah, again, it goes back to just them trying to shed cap space, I guess, and the Bengals offering a lot of money and Pittsburgh just deciding not to pay that. Let's see if I can find a couple more just questions before we close things out. We'll hit these really, really quickly if I can find a couple of them. Is there a trade out there with outside linebacker? They're not going to buy. They're not going to go make a trade for anybody, for sure. Matt Mahoney, Alex, did you cover the decision to play Pickett from Tomlin's perspective? If Mitch was that close to getting benched, why not give Pickett the 10-day prep for the game? Does it show Tomlin's winging it? Someone asked that earlier. I think it was the feeling of we really need to win this game, and so that was kind of the impetus behind it there. So I'm not mad at Tomlin for that, but it certainly didn't feel like... I don't think Tomlin went into that game planning to do that. It just kind of... That's the decision he made at halftime.
Right.
He's a gut guy. That's how he operates overall. Tim Chase D Ford, I think his back's all messed up, and that's what happened there with him. Do you think they'll get rid of Canada after this year? I think they will. Mm-hmm. Do I think Leal is a waste of a pick? I never said it was a waste of a pick. I had my concerns with him, and he's still got a ways to go. But I mean, he's looked better than what I thought he might. So if you feel like that's my comeuppance, then feel free. Rajan, did you have a question? We should start Sims over Gunner. They might go Steven Sims. It would not surprise me. I'm kind of half expecting it at this point as well. Dante Harris, Minka making an early push for defensive MVP. Let's see, Mike Adesso, you want hypothetical. Steelers would be 3-1 if TJ Watt wasn't hurt. They win yesterday. I'll tell you that much. They win yesterday if Watt plays.
I think that's the last conversation you and I had on direct messages at 2 a.m. in the morning, whenever it was, that, if they had Watt yesterday, they'd probably win that game.
Yep, he gets 3-4 sacks, and that'd be all she wrote. So that's going to be all she wrote for today's live stream as well. Appreciate you guys watching again. Shortly after this, call it about an hour or so, you can watch my All-22 film room breakdown on Kenny Pickett. Appreciate you guys being here and hanging out with us on this Monday. Hopefully next time we're talking about a victory, but it'll be a tough schedule ahead for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dave Bryan, as always, thank you for being here and enjoy the Monday night game.
Thank you for facilitating it, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Peace and love to everybody. Yep. Be careful.
Thank you, guys. Again, there'll be an archive version of this on Steelers Depot in a little bit, so if you want to rewatch the stream or if you missed part of it, you can go back and check it out on Steelers Depot in just a little bit. So appreciate you guys watching and hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon.